Hello, I am Rock the Jake, and welcome to the very first episode of Game and Think, the show that brings the lesser-heard thoughts of a gamer to the front of your attention. As a recreational video gamer for more than 15 years now, I've grown to develop my own thoughts about gaming and different ways to integrate those thoughts into modern gaming. One of these thoughts is about boss sequence difficulty and effectiveness of said difficulty. This pertains specifically to final boss fights that have more than two forms. Basically, here's the thought.
What if, in final boss sequences, the second to last form is the hardest fight, but then for the last form, the difficulty lowers and a specific gimmick or device is used to make that final fight more interesting and memorable?
It's a mouthful, I know, but it's a thought that asks for more thought and analyzation. Now, the majority of gaming goes by the standard protocol of progressive difficulty, which, makes perfect sense. For the most part, a game should be a journey that gets more challenging as it goes on. A really good example of this is Star Fox 64.
The game has different branching paths that you can take based on the way you play, but whether you go left, straight, or right, it gets harder and in a very satisfying way. Andross is a super fun boss to fight, whether you fight his robotic head or his brain, and it feels satisfying to cap the game off by defeating him in a fiery explosion.
But what about games that handle the boss fight a bit differently? It's not a new concept, I'll tell you that. One earlier example of this idea is used in Aladdin for the Super Nintendo. By the way, from here on out there will be spoilers, so watch at your own discretion.
When you reach the end of the game, you have to fight Jafar twice. While he isn't necessarily a super difficult boss, it can definitely be said that his first form is harder than his second form. During the first fight, Jafar fires off lightning, electric rays, and little pot enemies at you, all while swooping in to hit you. Mostly because of the slow-moving pot enemies, the screen can become a bit chaotic and things can get pretty difficult. But just like many games of the time, all you have to do is recognize Jafar's pattern, time your jumps right, and he's down. Then comes his second form, the Giant Snake. This fight is actually less difficult than the first fight, but the fight itself is very iconic in a way and very memorable. Jafar shoots gross-looking eggs at you, tries to strike at you, and even makes the Super Nintendo have a little freak out by moving his entire body up and down. Once you bounce on his head for the final time, the game takes control, making Aladdin get hit by Jafar and playing the final cutscene. The final fight is a memorable venture, and it's an interesting way to lead into the final moments of the game. A more modern example to mention would be the boss sequence of The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. This fight has 4 stages to it, starting with a very nice homage of a fight between Link and a possessed Zelda. The next fight, which could be argued as the hardest, is the fight with Pig Ganon. Then comes the horseback fight with Ganon,
which I personally think is more challenging, but only by a bit.
Then there's the very final fight. As another homage to Ocarina of Time, Link and Ganon are trapped in a circle of light, ready to duke it out. This fight is slower and more precise than the other fights. The lighting is being provided by the light. Ganon is towering over Link and he's moving slow. You can use your techniques you learned in the game to get the jump on him, but there's a gimmick, a device used to add tension to the fight and add to the experience. When a chance appears on the screen, you can confront Ganon in a sword struggle. Winning the struggle allows Link to hack away at Ganon. After this final fight, the final cutscene plays out and makes all the people who love Midna happy.
Including me.
In both Aladdin and Twilight Princess, the final fights, because they get less difficult but more interesting, allow for an interactive cooldown for the player, allowing them to continue playing but subconsciously gearing them up for the final moments of the game.
Now, the idea of the less difficult final boss sequence can be done in a few different ways. There's the way in the previous games of making the boss less difficult, but there's also the way of keeping the boss the same but making the player more powerful.
Enter Flower, a game that is an experience of its own. In the last couple of stages of the game, the main enemy reveals itself as industrial darkness, electric towers and metallic structures that jut out very suddenly to catch off guard and even frighten the player. But during the final level, when color starts flooding the scenery again, the flowers eventually gain the power to destroy the dark metals by touch, making them unstoppable and capping the game with a great feeling of accomplishment.
With all that being said, there's no reason to try and push the standard mechanic of progressional difficulty out. It's a staple in all of video gaming. You beat the first level, the second level becomes tougher. That's just how it goes. But in a time where gamers are always asking for something new and original, it definitely wouldn't hurt to change up the formula a bit.
Progressional difficulty can work with the theory of the last boss difficulty sequencing quite well. Giving the gamer a chance to cool down with an interesting final fight that leads into the final cutscenes can possibly be more effective than just having to climb peak after peak of difficulty. It's definitely something to think about.
Well, I gotta get going. I got some thinking to do. Peace out.
Hey everyone, thank you very much for watching this video. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a while and I'm glad I finally got it out. Thank you very much to X3 and Hiei Fire Shadow for helping me develop the thought a little bit more with their very helpful input. If you like this video, I ask you to like it, favorite it, and share it out with people because I think I have some interesting thoughts about gaming, and the only way I'm going to get that out to people is if I get some help sharing it. Again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to make more of these as time goes on. You can also click the annotations to watch some of my other videos. They're pretty funny, I think.